Martin, are you concerned for the direction South Carolina is going? This is now back-to-back years they've made the national championship game. This is back-to-back years they've been blown out in the national championship game. As I mentioned earlier, these are the third and fourth largest margins of victory in a national championship game ever. They've lost both of them.
Yeah. Well, they've been in the national championship game the last 3 years, correct?
This is true.
3 years in a row. They've been in the national championship game.
And it's 4 of the last 5.
4 of the last 5. Final fours, it's probably 4 of the last 6 or 5 of the last 6 or something like that.
They're like 6 straight or 8 straight Final Fours or something like that.
I'm not concerned at all, brother. I'm not concerned one bit. I'm really not. Like, they keep getting back here.
Yeah.
Things are gonna, the Raven Johnson era is over. Tania Latson's out. Things are gonna look a little different next year. Jersey Robinson's coming in. We'll see who else might be coming in or coming over. Or I'm not that concerned, bro. I have seen South Carolina people out there talking about how they feel like I saw a lot of people complaining about Medina after the game.
Okay.
And how the lack of a true dominant, post presence like South Carolina is accustomed to having was something that fans were really kind of pointing to and noting as like, that's what we have to get back to now, because Medina was driving people crazy, taking those 3-pointers and long twos during the game, which are shots that she's made all season. So I'm of the mindset of like, hey, she can hit those. So you got to give her that confidence. She's been making them all season. But I understand the sentiment because they didn't have like that true. And against going up against Lauren Betts in the national championship certainly would have helped to have a true presence. Now they're getting Ashlyn Watkins back. Chloe Kitts will be back. I don't know if they necessarily fit the bill as like a dominant inside presence. They're certainly capable bodies and athletes and good players. But I think fans are more so looking to get back to having an Aaliyah Boston or an Asia Wilson or a Camila Cardoso, or, a big player who really has that true impact inside. Medina gave them that inside out kind of versatility, which I really appreciated from her skill set to kind of change the look of South Carolina this season. But in the end, it may not have been that ideal. They even had to go to small lineups. They had to take Medina off the floor. They brought May Keir in, had to go with their smaller, quicker, lineups in that UCLA game to switch things up. So I'm not concerned. I am curious how they bounce back and what they do, with a new group, but not concerned, man. That would be going too far for me for a program that's been in the national championship game for 3 years in a row. I mean, getting blown out 2 years in a row is somewhat concerning and speaks to some of the things I think I've talked about with South Carolina and some of the things just the way they play, mainly on the offensive end. I've talked about it a good amount on this podcast, but despite any of that, they're in the Final Four. They're in the national championship. They're there. You want to finish the job. You got, you want to win them, but they're still getting there. So I think they'll be okay.
I mean, again, under Dawn Staley, we're talking about 8 Final Four appearances overall. This is 6 straight dating back to 2021. They've been in 4 of the last 5 national championship games. They've been in 5 of the last 7. We will be okay. We will be just fine. I personally, and maybe this is the non-athlete in me, so if you don't agree, correct me, whatever. Me personally, I would rather get blown out in a national championship game than get blown out the first weekend of the tournament. I would rather I competed for a championship than have been sent home in March. So I get it. I get it, right? Like, this is not a good look. It's not a good feel to have lost the big game the same way back-to-back years. I understand it. But what I would also say is this does speak to, and I don't want to necessarily it's a larger issue, but I would say this does speak to something that you and I have been talking about with South Carolina for the last 2 years. When is Joyce Edwards going to consistently look like the best player on this team? I really think that's what this boils down to. Now, her freshman year, maybe you say that's too much to ask for her freshman year. And if you believe that, that's fine. My rebuttal would be, yeah, but Sarah Strong at times looked like the best player on her team in a freshman year when she was sharing the floor with AZ Foot and Paige Beckers. And Michaela Blakes was setting records left and right on Vanderbilt in the same conference. And we saw what Maddie Booker was doing her freshman year. And then we saw what Hannah was doing her freshman year. So, like, fine. But now it's year 2. Or year 2? Yeah, now we're in year 2, right? You get Tenaya to come over and you think maybe she'll be it. She's not. Raven certainly looked like the veteran point guard that we kind of expected her to be at this point in her career. She had her moments. She didn't look great the last 2 games or the last 3 games of the tournament, whatever it was. But she had her moments this season. I'm ready for Joyce Edwards to look unequivocally like this is her team. I think that really is the issue more than anything else. I don't think it's because there's not a dominant big. I don't think it's because Tenaya Latson was being Tenaya. I don't even think it's because Medina was being. I just think it's time
fair
to unequivocally look like Joyce Edwards' team. It goes back to something you and I talked about before. You brought it up when we were doing our preview. We talked about like the most vulnerable 1 seed, and you talked about South Carolina. And I echoed, like, now I thought Texas was the most vulnerable because I just thought they were the worst of the 4.
Yeah.
But I also acknowledge on any given night, Tessa Johnson's the best player. Then maybe it's Raven Johnson. Then maybe it's Tenaya. Maybe it's Medina. Got Maycare had a couple of shining moments. So like, and there were some nights when it was Joyce. Joyce had a stretch of games like in the thick of the season when she set a new career high every other night.
Yeah, she averaged 20 a game, bro. She averaged 20 a game.
She's capable of it, but we got to see it consistently. And I think that is where we're at now with South Carolina. Like, yes, Chloe Kitt's coming back next year. Love that. Ashton Watkins coming back next year. Love that. Jersey Robinson's coming in. Love that. Sanaya Hall is not. That's the other USC. I know that was a thing. That's the other USC. Right. But like with all of this, with Raven being gone, with Tenaya being gone, with Medina now being gone, like you have people like I want next year to be the year that we don't have to guess who the best player on this team is. I think that's what's missing. Because you and I had a conversation after the UConn game, after the national championship game last year about what the identity of this team would look like without Malaysia, insert Tenaya. And I think that was the right question, but we had the wrong answer. Because we both agreed that something needed to change with their identity. We both thought it would come from the perimeter at that time. I think another season into the same way, I think that's proof that it has to do with Joyce Edwards. And again, I'm not saying Joyce Edwards is bad. I'm not saying it's all on Joyce or any of that. But what I am saying is when you look at the other teams in the country that we looked at as like the premier championship contenders, we know who UConn was playing through. It was Azian and Sarah. We know that UCLA was going through Kiki and Lauren. We knew that Texas was going to go through Madison Booker and to a lesser degree, Roy Harmon. We knew that LSU had the 3-headed monster with Flaugier, Michaela, Malaysia. We knew what Vanderbilt was. Every team that we looked at as a potential championship contender, we knew where they were going through, except for South Carolina. And we looked at South Carolina, and the basis of their championship contention, for the most part, was just merit, history, and the talent that existed. But even still, even in that game, you talked about earlier, when we really needed a shot, like, who were we really going to?
Yeah.
There wasn't really a go-to. And I think if Joyce can take that next step into her junior year next year and be that every single night, she's unequivocally the best player on the floor. I think it's not a matter of, well, they need to go get a 6'7" big in order for them to be competitive. I don't think it's a matter of they need to go find another version of Malaysia. I think it's just a matter of we know who our best player is. We know what she can give us. Let's do what we need to do around her so that she can not only be successful, but that the team overall can be successful. I think that's what it boils down to. I think it's time for Joyce Edwards to just be that girl. Just be the best player on the team. And South Carolina will be okay.
I think that's fair. I think that we're going to see Make here really take another step next year and make an argument for like one of your someone said to me on Threads, they think she has the potential to become the best two-way player in the country. I think Make here will really step into a stronger role next year and help even more Joyce kind of, where, because I think what you say is really interesting, because when you think about it, like UCLA was able to accomplish what we're talking about South Carolina, like when we, like with Tanaya, right? With anyone who goes to South Carolina, what's the word that they always mention? Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Well, what are you sacrificing? We all know what it is. It's the opportunity to score, 25 points a game or be an All-American, right? I talked about it during our preview of the tournament with Tanaya Latson, how coming into the year, she was ranked as like a top 10 player in the country because she led the country in scoring last year. We knew she wasn't going to lead the country in scoring on South Carolina because there's a spirit of sacrifice when you play for South Carolina, not just because you're playing with other great players, but because of how they play, how they preach to play. And that system, that model of playing is pretty similar to what we're talking about with UCLA, right? Like it's pretty much the same thing. Like UCLA, like I said, we know Lauren. They mostly played through Lauren. Like again, I think the argument is now up in the air, basically between who's their next best player, between Gabriella, Kiki, right? Like we both love Kiki Rice, but like it's not like she was pronounced as one of the top, players in the country this year. Like it was pretty even. That's why it's what made them so great. There's not really that much fluctuation between Kiki's really good. Well, Gabriella is really good, can look better than Kiki at some point. Gianna Neepkins is hitting shots that we don't see Kiki hitting, right? So there's a real balance of abilities there. And I know I've keep saying this, but it's just really important that I stress South Carolina and UCLA were in similar spots. Different people can show up as the best player. So even as you're saying, and I agree with you, I think you make a really good point there with Joyce, but it's not like that's the reason they lost to UConn last year. And what I talked about a lot with South Carolina last year and why I said I was worried about them was led up to why they lost. It was a difference in perimeter play and 3-point shooting. And that's why we talked a lot about, okay, Tanaya's coming in, little more guard oriented, maybe approach this season because of how they lost last season to a team that was just their 3 best players were far and away better shot makers than South Carolina's 3 best players. And the way that they played was just overpowering the way that South Carolina played with Paige, AZ, and Sarah, all 3 high-level shot makers from all 3 levels, right? This year, they lose to a team that was just balanced, kind of like they are. So I'm with you on that point on Joyce. I think that's a fair and strong point. But I also think now we're kind of in that same spot, but with a different kind of just the kind of team they lost to this year was different than the kind of team they lost to last year. And they were blown out by both. So I'm not really sure what the answer is. What I will say, my last point I'll say when it comes to Joyce, and I'll say this, it relates to something I felt about AZ in that South Carolina game. I don't know if it's a thing of like these players have won a national championship already. I'm not accusing either of them of being checked out or not caring that much because they've won before. I'm not saying that. But even Raven in her post-game conference, her and Tessa were up there. You didn't see girls bawling their eyes out, depressed. One of the reporters asked Raven, like, you're smiling. It seems like, Dawn always talks about you have a positive mentality and Raven had to tell them, like, listen, I have a bubbly personality. Yeah. And, I'm dealing with this. I'm smiling through my pain. She's like, I'm pissed off. Like, I am mad right now. She had to tell them because she's not sitting up there depressed and crying. I do think part of that is the fact that she's won 2 national championships already. So it's a little different when you're ending your career. I think that helps. I think when you're, you played your last college game, it's tough. It's emotional. But when you've already done it, I think that does help a little bit. So I was just like, I talked to you about this some with a player's temperament. That South Carolina game for AZ Fudd, I respect her temperament and her approach, but like, again, I'm not accusing her of not caring or being checked out, but she didn't have this. You didn't really see someone, and her teammates weren't giving, you didn't see someone grabbing her like, yo, lock in, keep shooting. Dude, like, I know they were probably saying it in the huddle. Like, I'm sure they were encouraging her, but even after the game, and some people got the Gino Dawn moment. A lot of people got on Gino for not being out there to be with AZ. It was her last game, right? You know, like a lot of people were pointing to that too. It's like, man, you left your team out there. You've got seniors out there. You didn't console them. Like, you know, there were layers to why that thing with Gino was just, you know, a mess. But after the game, you know, you see AZ jogging off the court. It's like, you know, and again, I can respect that even keel kind of temperament, but man, players like AZ, and then going back to Joyce, and I've talked to you about this with her, like, you don't see a whole lot of emotion, and it's not like you have to have that, but those are the kind of players, when you talk about Joyce really taking that step and really owning her talent and her ability to be the best player and to lead them in those big games and big matchups, I think that takes a little bit more of it. Like, Joyce is so even keeled, like nonverbal, right? Like, we're seeing Sarah kind of evolve and have to go through that. She was a lot more verbal and vocal this year than she was last year, but just very, you know, passive, humble, right? Like, and again, I'm not saying all great players have to show Hannah Hidalgo level of intensity and emotion, but that bit of intensity and emotion does make you more confident in, like, okay, they're gonna bounce back. They're gonna figure it out. You know, you don't see that a whole lot. And again, not that you need it, but I think that is something to point to and note when it comes to, like, you know, these games and these matchups and these big time and players taking over moments and taking over in big games.
Now, for Joyce, it might be a bit different because she hasn't won one yet. But I think just
yeah,
but even then, having been around people who have won one, a coach who's won one.
This now Joyce is a sophomore, and with Joyce, my point would be she's a sophomore,
right? Like, she knows there's still
years.
Yeah, she got right.
Last game, so I don't. Yeah, like, I didn't mean to group her into that. I was more so like saying Raven and AZ, but like in terms of temperament, yeah, I mean, Joyce is a sophomore, so I wouldn't expect her to be devastated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are going to take another quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about probably another. It seems like every year now we get a super surprising entrant into the transfer portal. This year, it's Audie Crooks. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk about that a little bit more on the other side.
You know what? Every man that used to play basketball in high school that was decent, like, every man's dream is to go to their nearest LA Fitness and ball out. Hit the game-winning shot, something. And you know what I do when I'm bored, when I'm like really tired, like when I'm chilling but relaxed, but I just want to look at some TikTok, I just want to scroll. I go pull up these girls that walk in random LA Fitnesses and be giving dudes that work. That twerk, walking and bodying dudes. Like, I'm like, yo, this is great. This is great entertainment. This is great entertainment. They go crazy. We got to protect our queens. We got to protect our queens. Give them they love. Give them they just do. You know how hard it is for a girl to walk into a LA Fitness full of dudes reliving a dream that has been deflated and cook them extra crispy? Yes, it takes skill. It takes candor. You know what I mean? Protect our queens. Shout out to Protect Our Queens podcast.
Shout out to the people watching live the Protect Our Queens podcast tonight. What we got some comments. What do we got in the comments, man? I know we got people chatting it up in there. What's going on in the chat?
Natured Ux 1957, or maybe it's Nature Redux, says, be concerned if Juju comes back fully healthy for USC. Losing Raven, who saved Dawn's backside countless times, is leaving. So maybe I don't know if I'd say Raven has saved Dawn's backside. I know because she said it. I think Dawn sees a lot of herself in Raven. She's had Raven no one's been with Dawn for 5 years. This is the longest. So, like, there is a special connection there. But I wouldn't go as far as say that Raven has saved her backside. I mean,
I wouldn't say that either. She's certainly she's been a staple of this part of the Dawn Staley era. It's going to be interesting. We did a whole episode on Raven maybe about a month ago after that LSU game. She put South Carolina on her back in the most testy and hostile game of the whole season, outside of the national champ. But that game at LSU, that was the game of the year, and Raven Johnson was the best player on the floor. That game put Raven Johnson stock so much higher up for me. But it is going to be very interesting. The South Carolina is going to be elite. They're going to be good. They got Jersey Robinson coming in. If people don't know, big guard. She's not the kind of point guard that Raven is, but very interested to see how her talent translates. I think she'll be a force right away, but it will be interesting to see, people talk about Maddie McDaniel. Some people feel like you can't just replace a Raven Johnson, I guess is just my point. You can't just replace that. You can make up for it, but you don't just get another Raven. They got other talent coming in. So it's going to be interesting what happens with the point guard position for them going forward. It is.